Hello there everybody, this is Verdict and thank you so much for stopping by. Now, as always on this channel we nerd about rets and prots in World of Warcraft Classic. So if you're a newcomer and you think this content will be enough to suffice your needs, then please don't shy away from subscribing and liking the videos. Now, with that being said, I wanted to make today's video special. So special in fact that I'm not going to talk about Verdict, the guy who makes it, that would be me, but today I want to tell you a story that would really shape me as a person inside World of Warcraft, and it's really going to be how to even say this. This story is the reason for which I made this YouTube channel. This story is the reason for which I still play Protection and Ret, and this story is what made me just elevate my senses in terms of retribution and protection. So today I'm going to tell you the story of the most badass protection paladin I've ever seen in my life. And this story takes place in the year of 2016, which was 5 years ago. Obviously on a private server, which I'm not going to mention for whatever sakes really, but I'm going to give a few hints throughout the video. So if you know about what I'm going to talk about, and you know kind of the environment, and most importantly, if you've seen the Protection Paladin himself, then you'll know what server we're talking about. But without further ado, let's get into it. So it's 2016 and I just dinged level 60 onto this server, which already had AQ40 released, and on this server people were preparing for Nextramus and there was already a release date for the Fresh. So I am a fresh ding level 60, so I kind of have like 4 months of progress, but still, you know, I just want to be a red pally like I always was for the past, 8 years, and I wanted to just play a red. So here I am with a little bit of Zul'Gurub gear, with a little bit of tier 0.5 set. Here I am just joining a Blackwing Claire pug, which I was taking in because I had a Nightfall. Even though that pug had 7 casters total, but who cares, you know, people just see a Nightfall and they're like, yeah, come over. So with that being said, I joined this pug. And we're fully world buffed, we got consumables in our bag. We enter in the room of Razorgore. As we're moving to the left side of the room, like where people usually pull, all of a sudden I see that there are 3 warriors, and not just 3 warriors, there is also a paladin with them, but he is in holy gear. Why are you standing so close to the tanks, you know? Like, what are you trying to do? And I look at this paladin, I click him just to see what type of gear he has, because he kind of looked neat. And all of a sudden I just click on him and I see his health, and that guy is on 9k health as a paladin, but he's with holy gear. And I can see he has quite a lot of stamina consumables. He has like a lot of stamina consumables on him, and I'm really confused at that point, but I'm like, it's black and clear, people meme, nothing too serious. So here we are, the raid leader, he says, okay, let's pull, guys. And as he is pulling, the paladin, which I just mentioned, literally just presses a button on his equipment manager or whatever item he was using, and he turned into a full-blown 12k health protection paladin. And we were like, whoa. You know, whenever this happens, you're like, okay, what's the deal here? What have we gotten ourselves into? And you can't really escape, and most people are like so offended by the existence of protection paladins that, you know, you most likely get the idea of, holy moly, what am I getting into? So as that paladin all of a sudden turned into a protection paladin with 12k hit points on him, which for AQ40 progression, completed AQ40 progression, is actually quite a lot, to be fair with you, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I'm getting sidetracked here. So he goes to the orb and he takes Razorgore, and tanks are assigned to the other sides. And you know, drakes on private servers are usually kited by hunters instead of killed by the raid, because they have more health on private servers than what they have right now in Classic. So everything is according to plan. We kill the mages, we kill the legionnaires or whatever they're called. Razorgore kills the eggs, and so that paladin, right, he's wearing a mage blade for some reason. Like, he's wearing a mage blade in his protection paladin build. So, and you can see mage blade, like, you know how mage blade looks. Whenever you see mage blade, you know that it's it. So here we are, eggs are down, Razorgore starts running to the paladin, and all of a sudden, the raid leader says, bro, you're using mage blade. And let me tell you what this Paladin does. He doesn't say anything. Instead, he decides to change his Mage Blade and he whips out a fucking Thunder Fury. And the raid starts sounding what I would describe as the chimp enclosure in a zoo. Like, it would be such it's such a cacophony at that given time that everybody started laughing their asses off. People were amazed by what we got ourselves into. That's a protection Paladin with fucking Thunder Fury. So, granted, the boss is staying on him, so he manages to predict the frontal cone, so he bubbles that, and he cleanses the bubble, and the boss is still on him, and he is actually rather tanky, and nothing really out of the ordinary. He has 12 fucking K health, for God's sake. And so we kill Razor Gore, right? And everybody is like, lol, 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 everybody's laughing, like, what the hell, Protection Paladin, kick W, and stuff like that, although kick W at that time wasn't a thing. And so, you know, people kind of give him a hard time, no matter how effective it was. It's Razor Gore, and he's bound to stay on the target who mind controlled him. So, with that being said, my friends, we kill Razor Gore. People laugh at him. People, you know, say in the Discord, or I think it was Raid Call. I think it was Discord. Whatever. At Discord, people say something like, "Kick W," you know, he most likely paid for that and stuff like that. Pretty much being really mean to the guy with Thunder Fury. So, we get into the Valstress room. And the raid leader says, guys, okay, everything is set. We killed the engineers and stuff like that. And he says, pop consumables, melee go to the right side of the boss. The tanks are gonna go left, and the protection Paladin, you go and you're gonna be ready to tank. And everybody at that time pretty much was ready to leave because, you know, protection Paladins are not famous for their threat. Onto private servers, the Blessings of King spam threat, it wasn't overall discovered, and the only way for a Paladin to generate threat was just from attacks and everything that their kit could pull. But see, that was my understanding of it. And that raid changed me fundamentally as a Paladin and the way I look at other Paladins. So, we are ready to pull, and the guy says, okay guys, just don't use, if you're a melee, don't use a Greeter Fire Protection Potion. If you're ranged and healers, then please use them. And we are a little bit confused onto that because, you know, Valstress deals a lot of damage from that dot, and you kind of want to mitigate it. And I look at that Paladin, and I see a little bit of his gear changing. Like, that Paladin is the focus of the raid. And his gear changes, and he uses the tier 1 set pieces for the improved Judgment of Light effect, which increases the chance to proc Judgment of Light by some percentage. And I'm still confused onto what's going on. Like, I don't really understand what's happening. So we start Valstress, and, you know, the 1 minute boring RP comes in. People are still thinking about leaving, but they don't really want to leave because they're already committed, and, you know, who knows, perhaps it's going to be the best raid of their lives. So what happens was, that Paladin is so stone cold, he didn't say a single word by the end of the raid, and he said only one thing, and that was a plus. He was that positive, because he was asked, are you ready to tank? He said plus. That's how, he was the coldest motherfucker ever. So, Valstress starts pulling, and he does some sort of threat initially, and, you know, if you've seen Paladin threat, most likely within 10 seconds he's gonna be a 2k threat. Like, it's just so bad. And then he says, the tank, okay guys, what are you doing? Start attacking. And we start mauling at Valstress, right? So we start mauling at Valstress, and as we start mauling, like, the Paladin's threat spikes to something about 2.2k threat per second. Like, it's ridiculous. Like, he's just starts spiking so hard on the threat meter to the point where I was so confused I couldn't understand what's going on. And not just at that time I was already, a Paladin for the past, 4 years, 3 years. I knew pretty much everything about the class that I possibly could, or at least that was my understanding of it. And Valstress is being tanked by that protection Paladin, and his threat is so much to the point where he is literally, seriously, it was ridiculous amounts of threat. And sorry for using these words, I still can't wrap my head around how genius that guy was. So, I look into the threat, and I try to see, there are a few add-ons which allow you to look at other people's threat. You know, they're a little bit complex add-ons that they could cause interface lags, but it doesn't really matter. I looked into his threat, and I saw that something along the lines of 95 to 96% of his threat comes from the Judgment of Light buff. And I was really confused because Judgment of Light is not meant to give the threat which is generated by all targets to the Paladin, because that would be an instant pull no matter what you do. It's going to be pulling to the Paladin who judged it all the time. But on this private server, this bug was there. And the threat which came from Judgment of Light would be all placed onto the Paladin's threat meter, and if the raid was taking enough damage, then the Paladin would be the focus of the boss. So, we down Valstress in about 40 seconds, or like 45, 50 seconds, doesn't matter, and everybody is at shock and awe. What the hell is going on? So, Valstress is down, loot distributed, and we start, going our way towards Broodlord, and it comes to the point where we're at the suppression room. And that Paladin is pretty much, he is equipping his shields and remaking his gear, and he's using the Ardent Defender, the 1% shield, which gives 50% block for 10 seconds. And he is pretty much tanking all of these whelps from the start. He never dropped a single whelp. Nobody did do anything to these whelps from the start up until the finish. He was so tanky with so much block. That was how ridiculous this guy was. That was his balls, I swear, man. Like, those were them balls were of steel. So we pull Broodlord Lashlair, and whelps die instantly. Who cares about them? So we pull Broodlord. Like, Broodlord is a really fast fight to begin with. For some reason, it's a really fast fight, and you kind of only care about healing the tanks at the given time. So there he is again with whatever gear he has, and he places the Seal of Light onto Broodlord Lashlair. But see, Broodlord, the only AoE thing that he does is the Blast Wave, so it's only going to hit the melees, but that's what he wants, right? So melees get hit, melees get to that, and all of a sudden, threat starts spiking to these ridiculous numbers again. And he gets instantaneously all the threat. Broodlord pushes him away. He smacks one of the tanks. He pushes the other tank away. He smacks the third tank. He pushes that away. He is back onto him. And they were switching places like this all the time. And I was at shock and awe. And the raid was excited to see this run go through. That was one of the very few times where I was so excited about a Blackwing Kalair run, and I don't think I'll ever be excited about a raid as much as I was that time with this particular Paladin. Just to let you know, I was a protection Paladin, I was a red Pally, and I was in his group, so I did help a little bit with the threat, with whatever, my Sanctity Aura could do. 10% holy damage. So with that being said, we down Broodlord Lashlair, and we're ready to clear the packs before Farmall, which we clear really fast, so we get into Farmall. And same routine similar to Valastris. Melee, get in, there's Judgment of Light. He would generate so much threat to the point where Wing Buffet hit him, and he didn't lose threat. Like, it was so crazy. I'm losing my mind just remembering this shit. It was so crazy. Wing Buffet would hit him. Wing Buffet halves your threat. Right? If you have 100k threat, it's gonna put you to 50k threat. And he would generate so much threat through this mechanic, to this bug, to the point where Wing Buffet would just be ridiculous. It would be useless. But although, he would get kicked with Wing Buffet at the start of the fight, and he didn't lose threat, but that's only now because he didn't lose too much threat to begin with. Wing Buffet on private servers was really stupid. It occurred 10 seconds within the start of the fight. It wasn't scripted well. So anyways, I'm getting sidetracked. So Wing Buffet hits him, he didn't lose threat, and everybody is still whacking at the boss. So second Wing Buffet comes in, a warrior taunts away from him, and by the way, he's not spending any mana because he doesn't need to. This is how broken this bug was. So he turns around, and what's happening is Farmall gets to one of the tanks, Wing Buffets the tanks, gets back onto the Paladin, then comes to the other tank, then gets back to the Paladin, and we kill Farmall with this ridiculously broken self-sustained tactic of not really caring enough about the damage that you take, because the amount of healing from Judgment of Light would be so much to the point where it almost negates that type of damage, especially if you're a warrior and a rogue. So we do that really quick without any issues, and Farmall drops really fast. So we cleared everything inside the room, and we went to Ebon Rock, and we went to Ebon Rock, and what was the other guy? Flamegore, I think? Yeah, Flamegore. Loot Drakes, who remembers them, right? And so we start pulling one of the drakes, and this guy all of a sudden, because there is no reason for you to tank the other two drakes because they're really taunt fights. You don't need to care about that. So two warriors with one warrior who decided to off tank really started picking up that fight. So with that being said, I thought about it. What is he gonna do now? And you know what this guy did? This guy equipped a full tier 1 set, the 8 out of 8 piece, smacked himself a Nightfall, like what I had, and he started whacking at the boss. And he was and I was in his group, and we had one of the tanks in our group, and I think we had the Shadow Priest also in our group. And it would be this incredibly self-sustained group to the point where he had the tier 1, and tier 1 private servers was ridiculously broken, by the way. It has something like 6 procs per minute. It turned out to be 12 if you use Seal of Righteousness because it doubles it on private servers. And it was so buggy, yet so cool to see. So he starts healing almost as much as a healer would heal onto that fight. So Flamegore and Ebon Rock just pass away, and we're getting into Chromagus. And Chromagus is kind of the no-no for Paladins because holy damage on him is reduced by, what, 90% I think it was Chromagus, or 80% reduction? It doesn't really matter, it's irrelevant. But anyway, so we go into Chromagus and we start battling him. And with that being said, we down Chromagus for something like 2.5 minutes because he has a lot of health. He really does have a lot of health. And so we down in nothing really special. Old Paladins and Chromagus are dispel bots. You don't really care about that. So we go into Nefarian. And that was the first time I really saw this happen. And I was amazed. I was so amazed by what this guy knows and how he does it. So we go into Nef, and the fight starts, and everybody has the cloaks on, and we kill all the Dragonkin or Draconians, whatever they are, and Nef drops down, everybody to positions, and starts tanking him, and he is in tank gear with his Thunder Fury. So, no threat is being given to him because the raid doesn't take this wide amounts of threat. But all of a sudden, Nef at like 25% was in the Enrage or whatever it is where he calls the skeletons. So the skeletons appear, right? And here's what happens. Skeletons fucking appear. And this guy, all of a sudden, I kind of lost track where he was at that time for some reason. So he used a Consecration and a Swiftness Potion at one part. And he would be able, for the time being, he would be faster than the mobs, and one part of the mobs would pull to him, while the other part of the other side of the room would also pull to his direction. And what that guy did that day was ridiculous. So he would cast a Holy Wrath, and he would cast he would throw a Stratum Holy Water, and he would almost instantaneously clear, single-handedly clear the entirety of the room. That's the first time I encountered that this could be done for far too many years of playing Red Paladins. That was the first time I really started looking into theory crafting and perfecting my my craft, really, as a Ret. And what he did was ridiculous. So he would use a Stratum 1 Holy Water with a Holy Wrath, and then like a mage or something just did a Arcane Explosion and they died. And that was so impressive to see because it wasn't anything about a bug. So this story is really about my growth as a paladin out of seeing what other paladins do and discovering new things. So the run ends and everybody is ecstatic. Like, people can't stop talking about him. And here's the creepy part. He never said a single word outside of that plus whenever he was ready to tank whatever he was ready to tank. And not just that, he left the raid, which he was a part of the guys who made the raid. I think he was a part of the raid leader team, whatever it was. And he left the raid and he went to Ironforge. He didn't need anything. He was there probably just to help or whatever. Like, good for him, right? So he goes into Ironforge, onto the Ironforge bridge, and just sits. And I looked at him, and he wasn't wearing the Thunder Fury. And I was wondering why. And I went and I asked him, "Yo, bro, why aren't you wearing the Thunder Fury?" And he whispers me into personal, and he says, "I'd rather not equip this in front of people." And I was, whoa, what do you mean? Why not? It's so prestigious to have it. And he's like, the amount of bullying I get for having a Thunder Fury is far too much than what I could cope with. And that was when I was like, oh shit. Because, I was a part of the raid that was yelling and howling at the first boss, just pretty much smashing onto the guy for having a Thunder Fury. Because even I knew that that's not a good thing to have. And he unequips his Thunder Fury and he uses the Azure Song Mage Blade. And he never does equip it unless he raids. With the people that he knows and the small amount of pugs which they take to that. And that's, even though the story really starts at a good note, it kind of ends with a bad note. I never saw this Paladin ever again onto that private server. I added him instantaneously, never saw him again, ever. But anyways, guys, this is a story that I'll always remember from my World of Warcraft days, and I'll always tell this story to as many people as I could. The Protection Paladin, which made like 40 people worship him because of how cool it was. 39 people, but you get the idea. So I know his name. I won't release his name. I won't tell on which private server this was, just for the sakes of the immersion, if that really counts as it. But yeah, everybody has this one Paladin who, especially if you're a red Pally or a prot Pally, holy Pally, everybody has this one hero Paladin. This guy was mine. Because of him, I started playing prot. Because of him, I made this YouTube channel so that things would not go unnoticed. I wanted to know everything, and I wanted to share it with you before anybody else. This is what this channel Verdict is all about. So yeah, guys, thank you for sticking with me onto episode 2 of The Verdict, the greatest protection paladin that I've ever seen in my life. Hope you enjoyed it. Take care, guys. Have a good one.